Alrighty, well, hello. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jason Onesto. I am the Assistant Director of New Student Programs here at the University of Richmond. We appreciate you gathering here for our next episode in our New Spider Summer Series, where we host webinars for our first year incoming students coming in to join us in the fall. I will hand things off to my intern, Marianne, to introduce herself. Marianne.
Hi, all. My name is Marianne Packer. I actually just recently graduated from the University of Richmond, and now I'm working in the Office of New Student Programs as an intern. Excited to be here with y'all today.
Thank you, Marianne. We'll let our guests introduce themselves here in just a moment, but before we do, one quick housekeeping item. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you will notice there is a box with a little question mark in the center of it. That is our Q&A function. If you want to go ahead and utilize that to submit any questions you may have throughout the presentation or whenever we have our formal Q&A portion open up at the end of the webinar, you are more than welcome to do so. If that's where our way that will help us to facilitate any of those questions that you may have, and then also get you the answers that you may need. Aside from that, I'm going to go ahead and hand things off to our panelists for the day. Dr. Sutherland.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Kerstin Soderlund, and I'm one of the Associate Deans at the Jepson School of Leadership Studies. And so I'm excited to be here today. Right now, two of our class of 2026 grads are with us, but another one should be joining us shortly. And we just wanted to share a little bit about the Jepson School with all of you. It is a unique feature of the University of Richmond. It was the first school of its kind in the country. So often we get questions about, sort of what is it we're all about. So I'm going to share a little bit of general information with you about sort of the school, the curriculum. And then really I've asked Braeden and Juliet and Jack, who'll be joining us, to share a bit about their experience, because really they're far more interesting than I am. And I think you'll find that all of our students have a very different experience as a Jepson student. So I'm going to jump right in. Hang on 1 minute. My slides are being funky. Okay. So the two big questions that we typically get when we're doing a session of this sort is, what is leadership studies and what can you do with a leadership studies degree? You may have other questions. You may want to know about study abroad. You might want to know, about other kinds of research opportunities. And we will certainly share information about that as well. But we always figure we'll start with these guys because they're sort of the big questions that most folks have. So when I talk about the Jepson School, we were the first in the country to grant a baccalaureate degree in leadership studies. We're a very unique in that we are our own school. So there are now other places that have leadership studies majors and minors, but they're typically interdisciplinary. They're not typically their own school. And why that's important for you all to know is that our faculty come to the Jepson School to specifically work with leadership studies and leadership studies students. So what do I mean by that? At other institutions, when it's an interdisciplinary program, they're pulling faculty from all different places. And so what can sometimes happen is if you have a psychology professor who teaches as part of the leadership studies program, and all of a sudden the psych department now needs more Psych 100 classes, that can sometimes be challenging. And so our faculty come from a wide array of different disciplines. We have psychologists, we have sociologists, anthropologists, historians, philosophers, economists, people whose area is religious studies, law, literature. And so they bring all of these different disciplines to bear on this sort of very big topic, right, which is leadership. So we say here at Jepson that we're educating for and about leadership. And I always start with the about part, because if I didn't, our faculty would not be happy. So we think it's really important to give students a really strong foundation in the process that is leadership. And that is the one thing I think that all of our faculty would agree on, is that we do frame and think about leadership as a process. So if I had to think about the Jepson classes and I was going to drop them into three different buckets, one bucket would be leadership as it was. So some of our classes definitely look back at different points of time. But we're not just looking at the individuals who may have been particular leaders at a particular point in time. We're also looking at all of the individuals that surround them, and we're looking at sort of the context and what's going on in the world at the same time that these individuals may have had leadership roles. So the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? We're hoping that we're going to learn and be able to take things from the past that we can still use today and going forward. So that's sort of one group of our classes. Another bucket, I would say, is leadership as it is. And I think we can all agree there is no shortage of things to talk about, the good, the bad, and the ugly in regards to leadership in our contemporary society. So, here we have a number of classes that are looking at sort of group dynamics, organizational culture, theories and models about leadership and different ways that leadership plays out, but also thinking about power, persuasion, influence, those kinds of processes, and sort of how they're used or potentially abused in regards to the process of leadership. So, grappling with a lot of really contemporary issues and things that are kind of current in the moment, sometimes also very controversial, right? And also thinking about what are the kinds of things that impede people from leading? And what do I mean by that? Not necessarily that they're lacking particular skills or competencies, but maybe because of different identities that they hold, the way others perceive them, and whether others would legitimize them and see them as leaders. So thinking that our classes would fall into is leadership as it should be. And so one of the key things about our curriculum is a focus on ethics. It's kind of peppered throughout, but the last class, sort of the capstone that our seniors take, is our leadership ethics class. And we think that that's a really critical piece, because we're not really looking to make like a whole bunch of little generals and CEOs. We may do that. We may have some of those folks out there. We do have some of those folks out there. Really, what we want is to create ethical and effective individuals who are going to be able to be ethical and effective, whether they're in a leadership role or whether they're in a followership role. Because the reality is, throughout our lives, we hold those different roles, right? So that's kind of the big, broad overview. And Jack, our third senior, just joined us. So, hey, Jack. So to give you a sense, if you were to look, this is a chart that shows the core classes for Jepson, whether you're a major or a minor, okay? The other side of the chart actually shows general education requirements. So coming into the university, you're, yes, going to have majors and minors, perhaps multiple ones, but everybody is also going to be required to take the Web of Inquiry, which is sort of our general education program. And the reason I like to show this is that another kind of unique thing for Jepson, when we just recently redid our general education requirements, every single one of our required courses for the major and minor actually checks a box for general education. So that means if you check out Leadership 101, Historical Foundations of Leadership, and you're like, I'm going to see what this thing's all about, you can actually at the same time be checking off a box for general education. So that's just really nice. I think it's something that is at the university allows people to have multiple majors and minors, because we do kind of have different things checking off boxes. If you were to put PPEL, which is an interdisciplinary major, together with a leadership studies major, depending on your PPEL concentration, there's actually upwards of like 5 classes that are Jepson classes that actually check a box for PPEL. So I think you're going to find when you get here, as you start to explore, you're taking these gen ed classes to get a broad exposure, and you're going to find that actually, whether you're taking leadership studies or psychology or others, they're going to probably serve multiple purposes for you. So all majors and minors are going to take these core classes. For the students who are majoring in leadership studies, they're going to take, in addition, 4 electives, and then there's a credit-bearing internship that's part of the curriculum. So it's really, in total, 5 additional units on top of that core. If you're going to be a minor, it's not to say that you won't do an internship, but you're not going to do the credit-bearing internship that we require. So you really only have 2 electives that you have to take. Now, we love our majors and minors equally. I will say, for any of you who are thinking about studying abroad, We make certain that when all of our majors study abroad, which is usually about 60% of them, that one of the classes they take abroad is actually going to check a box for one of their leadership electives. We don't do that for our minors because the minors are only taking 2 electives, and we're selfish and we think they should take them both with us. So knowing that, if you know you're going to study abroad, and then, the reality is you're probably going to do multiple internships over the course of your time here at the University of Richmond. We're really now talking about the difference of 1 unit between the major and the minor, because if you're a major and you go abroad, you're going to get an elective, and I can tell you, we want our students to intern in any field or industry. So as long as you meet the hour requirements and some other requirements, you can use any kind of internship to fulfill your Jepson requirement. So that's sort of the broad overview, gives you the breakdown of sort of what the core classes are, and sort of the difference between the major and the minor. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to let my lovely new alumni share some thoughts. When people ask, what do you do with a leadership studies degree? I actually like to start by talking about where our students do their credit-bearing internships. So this is just an example, right? This is a smattering of places from the last several years. This summer, I have something like 68 students doing their internships. The class of 2026 that just graduated, there was about the same number doing their internship in summer 2025. So you can see we have people who are working in sort of very traditional, sort of business-oriented, for-profit. We have people who are doing science-based, journalism-based, nonprofit, healthcare-based internships. So again, we're going to work with you and help you find your internship. We're going to help prepare you and do some professional development, get you comfortable with networking and all sorts of things. But now when I say, well, what do you do with a leadership studies degree when you graduate? I have a slide about that as well. But what you're going to see is that there's some similarity between these 2 slides. And so what happens is, not just for Jepson, I think we're finding this universally in higher education. Lots of companies are actually using internships now to vet people as potential full-time employees. So for some of our students, they go off, they do their Jepson internship, and they actually get an offer at the end of the summer, or sometimes it comes later, and you'll hear that from one of our folks here who's on the call today, from the company where they interned. And the company says, you know what, hey, we'd love to have you come back when you graduate and work with us full-time. So that is a reality that happens for some of our students. That does not happen for all of our students. I would say probably if I have 68 students, a particular summer, maybe probably somewhere between 7 to 10 of them may get an offer back from their actual internship site. But our alumni, as you can see, again, are working in all kinds of fields and industries. And I will also say our alumni, Richmond alumni in general, are really connected to the institution and stay engaged and come back. Jepson alumni are kind of uber engaged and want to stay involved. So every year, when our students are preparing for internship, we do a program called Jepson Edge. We typically have anywhere from 40 to 60 alumni return to campus for a 1-day program. And, they network with our students. They talk about how to go out and talk about the leadership studies degree out in the world, how they've leveraged what they took from the curriculum in the work that they do. So it's not uncommon for students to say, hey, I'd really like to talk to an alum who works in this field or industry. And I will reach out to alumni and say, hey, would you mind talking to Juliet, or would you mind talking to Jack? And then just making the connection between the student and the alum. So I'm going to stop there, and I don't know which of the 3 of you would like to go first. But I thought maybe you could introduce yourself, share, what degrees you graduated with, and then anything you'd like to share about your Jepson experience. Am I going to have to call on somebody?
I can go. I can go.
Juliet's going. All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Juliet Zucker, and I am from Westchester, New York. I double majored in leadership studies and journalism. Like Dr. Soderlund said, I just graduated this May, or all three of us just graduated. And yeah, I really loved my time at school. I'm sad that it's over, but I loved Richmond so much that I moved here, and I'm currently job searching. But my internship that I did with Jepson was at a company in New York City called Mo News, and it was a startup journalism company, and just did like a bunch of breaking news stuff between content, prepping for interviews, making the brand logos, doing all that kind of stuff. So kind of all over the place, but a great experience nonetheless. And I did get an offer to go back, which was great. And I also did work there for the full year, but I just wanted to take a different route. And yeah, I love Jepson. I had great relationships with all my teachers, some of whom I'm still in contact with now, trying to job search. So they've been a great resource for me, and they're always willing to reach out to other people and connect me with a bunch of different people that they know. And right now, I just think it's amazing to see that even if, someone isn't in my direct field, they know other people. And I think that that just speaks really well to Jepson and how diverse not only the students are within the school, but also the faculty. I took a class this year, actually, Jack was in it, but it's called Killers and Cults. And that is a class that I never thought that I would take ever going into college. But it was really, really interesting, and it connected to leadership really well. And just talking about all the bad leaders, what makes a good leader, and how honestly cults are, maybe a little bit similar to other, groups that we see today. But yeah, really great experience between my classes, my faculty, and just everything that Jepson had to offer. So,
Thanks, Julia. I don't know, Braden or
Oh,
Jack, who
man.
wants to jump in.
Yeah. First of all, sorry for being a few minutes late, everyone, but it's good to see you all. Yeah, so my name is Jack. I am from Northern New Jersey. Like Juliet and Braden also graduated in May, and I'm kind of sad about it, but yeah, so I'm going to law school at Boston College in the fall. So this summer I'm kind of just hanging out working for my town. But my Jepson internship was with my local congressman. His name was Josh Gottheimer. Like Juliet, I got a return offer to go back there and was like, don't know if I want to do that. I think I want to go straight to law school. So for all of you kids that are worried about getting jobs, it's going to be okay, and your Jepson internship is going to help you out a lot. I'm trying to think. Other things that I did in Jepson, I did an honors thesis, which took up a lot of my time senior year, but it was super rewarding and super fun, and I'm gonna end up publishing that sometime down the road with my advisor. So that's going to be super fun. God, I went to Prague with the International Leadership Association conference, and Jeffson sent me there free of charge. So if you want to take trips potentially all around the world, Jepson's a great place to do that. And we got to compete in a case competition against people and students from all over the world using theories inside of leadership studies to solve global problems. So that was super amazing. I think looking back on my Jepson experience, the one thing I kind of say to everyone to talk about it is that whatever your interest or passion is, Jepson gives you a way to think about that passion in a completely new light that no one else in the field or like none of your other peers are really going to think that way. I really do think that Jepson like completely rewires your brain in terms of how to think about problems, how to think about engaging with other people. And what great strategies you can have as you do enter your internship and as you enter the workforce after college. Yeah, those the classes like critical thinking, even if you're thinking like, what does that even mean and how is that a core class? But it really just changes the way that you think and helps you attack any of your passions, any of the problems you may face as an adult from a completely new light. And it really does give you a step up. So when they say Jepson edge on that thing, I really do think that Jepson gives you an edge. But yeah, thank you.
Everyone, I'm going last here. My name is Braeden Herriot, and like everyone else, I just graduated as well. And I'm back in Richmond, like Juliet, probably only 15 minutes from campus. Um, at Richmond, I was a leadership studies major and a business administration minor. And my Jepson internship was with a property management company, a third party company that manages a pretty large portfolio in the greater Richmond region. And I'll be and starting work there this coming Monday. So that'll be exciting. But it was my Jepson internship, and I got to meet a lot of the same people through my time there as an intern. So it shouldn't be I'm not too scared because I'll know a lot of the people there, and it was a great job. Um, but sort of putting myself into your shoes, I actually was a peer advisor last year, so you guys are getting a lot of these emails from like a student, and that really taught me sort of the boat that you're in now, because for us, when we were freshmen, like this recent graduating class, we had a different curriculum. So it was actually more difficult to take a Jepson class and experience it if you really wanted to attack like academics right away. But now there's really no reason not to take one. And if you're really just curious into how Dr. Soderlund explained leadership as a process, and just saying like, why is there a leader in place? Why are there these followers that are behind this leader, and can these followers somehow like emerge into a leader? And if you're curious and how that can like apply to your own life as well, because it was something that I always felt like was very practical into my life and trying to get better as a leader and as a person. I think the curriculum itself is just so realistic and applying to life. But sort of when I was in your shoes, I took Leadership 101, which is the humanities one. You really can't go wrong with either the 101 or 102, but I think it adds a really strong benefit to your first semester at Richmond. Just starting out in a curriculum that's so like encouraging you to be curious while you're also being curious about being a freshman that you are, is just sort of, it goes hand in hand really well. So can't really say any more great things about Jepson, but I know I'll be an active alumni post grad, and I can definitely say it helped me with getting my job and just wanting to explain different processes in the world through looking at leadership. Thank you.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna put all three of you on the spot. Um, so uh what would you say best? I know Julia brought up Killers and Cults, but was there like a best class, a favorite class, or a favorite part of a class that you just um thought was so unique and really different than other kinds of classes you were taking at Richmond?
I mean, yeah, I did talk about killers and cults, but I would say, especially right now, I took two classes with this professor, my FYS, which was my freshman year seminar, and I took that fall of my freshman year. So it was my like one of my first classes I ever took. And then I ended up having him this past semester. So I started with him and I ended with him, and it was a really great experience to have that relationship all throughout college. And that's with Dr. Shields. He specializes in education within Richmond. And now, especially, I'm kind of starting to look into potentially going into that path. So he's been a really great resource for me, and just like having that class as something to open my eyes as a potential career path has been really helpful. And we also just throughout that class looked into different schools within Richmond. So I really loved how personal he made it to our community. And I felt like I knew a different side outside, like just beyond our school. I got to understand more about the education system within Richmond. So,
Sorry, I'm like a mess today. Like internet's going out and everything. I think favorite class for me, just because Juliet already brought up all about killers and cults, which was a super fun one for me. But I think very top of the list for me was an elective that I took with Dr. Price. It was called You Can't Think That, or Can You? And we started reading some like early philosophy. Like we read John Stuart Mill and Plato, but the whole idea of the class was like freedom of thought. And we basically just sat there talking about every single controversial topic that like most other schools would say, like, no, like that's off limits. You can't talk about that in the classroom. And we talked about it and we really just learned how to have really responsible and productive conversations about things. What I loved the most was that like the spread of kids in that class was like so far across the ideological spectrum. Like it's kind of a perfect split. And we were all still like really close with each other, even if we were disagreeing about like really hot button issues of the day. And it really did give me faith for like how our generation can work together and talk to each other and solve problems, even as we get more polarized. So yeah, just believe in that. And again, it speaks to Jepson and the type of kids that we have here that we're able to have those types of discussions and learn a lot from them.
I'll talk about two things because I know I can't not talk about the Jepson role-playing games that are brought up in some classes. So basically, how it would work is, in really any class you could have. I took a class with Dr. Javier Hidalgo. But there might be other professors that do the same. But you're put into like a historic context, and everyone has a role in that event. So it could be like um, a democratic primary, or like ancient Greece, and you could be like Plato and Socrates, and um, you're put into these sort of situations where you're using leadership actively in the class, and you're writing essays and you're giving speeches and you're making deals and negotiating with people. So this was actually the class I took as a freshman, first semester. So I was really lucky because I felt like it really brought me out of my shell right away, because from day one, you were talking to people, making deals and giving speeches in front of a whole class, which really think brought me out of any like nervousness I had, because everyone was in the same boat. But that's a really cool experience you might be able to have through Jepson, and you can sort of learn more about that as you learn more about the Jepson curriculum. But I have to say, my favorite class was Leadership and the Future of Higher Education, with the former president of UR, Dr. Ronald Crutcher. And I think this class, and there's other classes too, really teach you about like just how wide and how like leaders are very just how many different jobs and sort of occupations are important in leadership. And I think you immediately might think of like a politician when you think of leadership, but there's so many jobs like being a college president or being a CEO that are just really applied to this leadership degree as well. And how really, I think the most important thing I took is how your message from the top really has to delegate to the bottom. And there has to be a process in place for that to happen. So, and that would be a really cool experience to have, as well as taking any class that has a relationship to like an occupation as a leader. So Jepson offers a lot of that.
Yeah, so I think Braden, it's a great point. I think our classes are pretty unique in the way our faculty structure them. They don't do a lot of what we're doing today, right? Just talking at you. So there's an expectation that you're going to come, that you're going to have read the material. So whether you're doing reacting games like Braden just discussed, whether you're engaged in solving a crime that lasts an entire semester like you do in Killers and Cults, uh, you're going to be asked to do a lot of things that are really going to help you develop the skills and competencies that we think about when we think about leaders, right? So your writing is going to get better. You're going to get better in regards to speaking and persuasive, discussions. Jack talked about, the Dr. Price's class and really trying to help folks develop the capacity to talk about challenging topics and do it in a way that is productive. A lot of times our Jepson students will say by senior year, they know exactly how to push one another's buttons because they've talked about so many challenging topics that actually They know what to say to set Juliet off or get her going because they know what she cares most passionately about. Or I think our students and our alumni also say typically, Jepson didn't teach me what to think. Jepson taught me how to think. And so I think that's something we really try to focus on as well, so that no matter what field or industry you work in, and Braeden just sort of said this, there's people above you, there's people below you, there's peers, right? So no matter where you're working or what the context or nature of it is, all of the stuff that we're talking about is relevant no matter what context you drop into. Sure, there are going to be little nuances that might be different in the business world versus the nonprofit world. Absolutely. But like the key basic things are going to kind of be the same. I'm going to share my screen one more time. I want to share, just talk about a couple of other things. And then I know that we're going to take some question and answers from y'all. So let me pull my screen back. Let me pull this back up. All right. The reason, so Jack talked about going to grad school, right? It's his next step. We have some students that go right off to graduate school. I'll go back to this other slide, actually. Or sometimes people take time off. So sometimes people go out and work and then decide to go back to grad school. We've got a slide in here, and they're going to share the video and the slides from today with you all, just showing the unbelievable spread, looking at the classes of 2022, 2023, and 2024. We kind of like to look at 3 classes together because we're relatively small, right? The number of people who are graduating each year. And we're still waiting to get our 1 year out of our 2025 folks. So we'll drop off 2022 and add in 2025 here shortly. But you can see that there's a tremendous spread in terms of the different fields and industries that people choose to go into. But in terms of graduate school, I do want to share one other really unique element about the Jepson School. So our benefactors, Bob and Alice Jepson, in 2019, came to us and they said, they're a little biased. They think a Jepson education is the best undergraduate education in the world. And they thought that they'd like to provide the opportunity for our graduates to perhaps have one of the best graduate educations in the world as well. And they felt that that was Oxford University. So starting in 2019, they created the Jepson Scholars Foundation. And so each year, we have been able to send a certain number of students over to Oxford after they graduate here from the Jepson School for any 1 year master's program in any field or industry. And it is fully funded. Tuition, room, board, flights back and forth from here to the UK. We had one person, Sabrina, our very first year, go off and did a program in Latin American studies. But you can see that since then, we've had growing numbers every year. I believe this year we just sent, I think it was 6 students this year as well. I have not added them in here yet. But you can see, I do need to go in and update this. We've had students, though, who are doing all sorts of programs. So it could be history, it could be health service improvement and evaluation, refugee and forced migration studies. And we've actually had a number of them do public policy. So the Blavatnik School at the University of Oxford, prior to our first person that they admitted, they had not been admitting people directly out of an undergraduate program. And one of our 2020 grads, Lena, went over there and they took a chance on her. And she hit it out of the ballpark. And we have had people accepted at the Blavatnik School for Public Policy directly out of undergraduate ever since. So this is a great opportunity. If you are thinking about graduate school, there are opportunities to do research. Jack talked about doing an honors thesis. There's going to be other ways that you could do research, which help prepare you in terms of going into graduate school. I will also say, though, we also have folks go into all kinds of graduate programs. So outside of Oxford, we have people who go off and do public health, law, physical therapy, city planning, public planning. We have students who have gone off to dental school, medical school, all sorts of things. So we definitely have folks going and exploring postgraduate studies in a variety of different areas. the one other thing I will share with you is just a couple of other opportunities. Jack talked about having the opportunity to go to Prague for the ILA conference and do the case study. We actually have a group of students embarking this week to do the Jepson at Cambridge program, which is a 6-week program in the summer that we do with the law school here at the University of Richmond. So we have about 10 students going. The law school has about 10 students going, and they actually will go and take 2 half-unit law classes. It's a great opportunity for our students who think they might be interested in law. Some of them come back and they're like, sign me up for the LSAT. And some of them are like, what was I thinking? I am never going to law school. But it's a wonderful opportunity for them to sort of test drive it. And they're surrounded by other law students. We have the Gary McDowell Institute Fellows Program, which is another program open to actually students across the university. But it's another forum and another vehicle where we're asking students to engage in conversation around a variety of different topics, some of which can be sort of challenging. We have honors track, we have science leadership scholars, we have funding in the summer for people to do summer research. We also have funding to support students when they're doing their Jepson internship. And we also have scholarships that are available. So we have lots of different resources for our students and want to try to help them do whatever it is that they would like to do while they're here. So I'm going to end and then we'll take some questions from you all. Just saying, if you think that this sounds kind of intriguing, if we've sort of whet your appetite a bit, you can sign up for either 101 or 102. Those are the 2 intro classes, the humanities and the social science class. You can take them in either order, right? You're going to have to take both of them if you major or minor, but it doesn't matter if you take 102 before 101. So when you're going to register, that's something to keep in mind. If you don't get into one of them or you don't do it in the fall semester, then you could do it in the spring semester and you could check it out. But once you've taken one of those classes, you are automatically on my radar, whether you want to be or not. And so I will start contacting you right before the start of sophomore year about our admissions process. Please know, and I think my 3 new alumni would support me in this, the application for the Jepson School, which you do in the fall of your sophomore year, is far less onerous than applying to get into the University of Richmond. They're all shaking their heads yes. So we are going to ask you to write an essay, one essay. I think it's like 350 words, which is actually harder than when you get to ramble for a couple thousand. So we're going to have you write an essay. We're going to have you get an evaluation from your 101 or 102 instructor. And our faculty do this every single fall, so they're very accustomed to this process. And then we're going to actually get your transcript. We do not have a stated GPA like the business school, for instance, has. And we really want to look at your transcript because there is a possibility that during your first year, you might have a class that was not your jam. And one class can kind of screw up a GPA sometimes. So we would rather look at your transcript and see the kinds of things you've been exploring and taking. And then it's an opportunity to say, oh, well, gosh, that was just not Jack's core class, but like, wow, it's an aberration, right? So we're going to really weigh all of those things during the application process in sophomore year. But what you need to know in the position you're in right now is if it seems at all interesting, get into a 101 or 102. Having said that, I can also tell you though, actually you're eligible to take any of our elective classes, which a lot of people don't realize. And we have had sometimes first year students come in who could not get into a 101 and 102 who's like, hey, there's a seat open in that elective, I'm going to take it. And if you want to do that, you can do that by all means. So I think with that, I think stop sharing again and see what kinds of questions, if any, you all have posted. We can't actually see them, so they're going to ask us those questions and then we can answer them for you. All right, Jason and Mariana.
Thank you so much. I'm looking in the chat. It doesn't look like we've received any questions yet. However, let's go ahead and submit some. We can open up the floor for any questions you all may have. We'll keep an eye on this Q&A box.
We were so thorough, we answered all of your questions. That can't
Naturally.
be. That can't be.
In the meantime, I'm
Yeah.
curious from the student perspective if you have any advice for our incoming first years when they're considering leadership, if there's anything you wish you would have known as you stepped into those classes.
Excellent question.
Honestly, I think you guys are doing a really good thing here, like coming to these kinds of info sessions, because for me, I walked into my first leadership class and kind of just had like my socks knocked off of me. And I was like, for me, it was like falling in love. I was like, oh my God, I love this so much. Like, this is my place. But like, I had no idea what I was getting into. I was like, oh, like leadership school? That sounds kind of cool. And I just like went in kind of blind. And like for me, that worked out really great. And I was like, oh my God, this is like totally my thing. But I think honestly, like what you guys are doing now is really great. And like thinking about what you might want to do when you get there is really good. I don't know. I kind of going in blind was great for me because it was just having so many new things to discover along the way. And it was so much fun for me.
I would probably say one is I know we sort of talked about how the curriculum has like the reading, writing, speaking from day one. The professors don't expect you to be masters at that right away, so definitely don't turn away. It's actually they are treating it like a process as well. So from freshman year to senior year, you're going to really get all those skills. And then the second thing I'll say is if you're someone that is doing like wanted to do business or science or really anything, but doing like the sort of work you're going to be doing in these 101 and 102 could really sort of, they kind of say like you have two sides of your brain. And like if you're doing a lot of these like math and science, maybe add Jepson on the other side and you'll get sort of those other things and sort of get every part of sort of what you're looking for in your first semester or second semester. So it definitely helps in sort of curriculums that might have more math or that or whatnot, and sort of helping you separate what you're going to be working on.
My only advice would be just to try taking the 101 or 102 or 100, 102. Yeah, I am really glad that that was one of the first classes that I took at Richmond. I was knew that I was really curious in leadership, but I'm happy that I even just took that step and took the course. In general, my brother went to the University of Richmond, and one of his biggest regrets is not taking any leadership courses. So I took his advice and I ended up being a leadership major. So I would just say that if you think you know what you want to do, there always room to take classes, and I would just say explore that opportunity because it's unlike any other school that, you might be applying to. So I would just say try it and you never know.
Juliet's brother so regretted not being a leadership studies major. He married a leadership studies alum. I would say, to add on to kind of all the things that you all have said, um, I think there's two things that tend to happen is incoming students get really crazy about grad tracker. They get really crazy about checking off boxes for general education and for majors. And trust the fact that the people who run the university have built something that is manageable in 4 years. We have people who actually put leadership studies major together with other majors and sometimes more than one other major or multiple majors and minors. So so it's possible. No one believes me as an advisor when I say to them freshman year, you're going to get to senior year, and I'm going to say to you, you're done with all your gen ed and you're done with your major minor requirements, and you still have 3 units you have to take to graduate. Believe it or not, it happens. It's built into the system. The other thing I would say though is if you have multiple interests, you should pursue them. Do not get frantic about collecting majors and minors, right? People start, they hear other people, oh my gosh, my roommate has 2 majors and a minor. I only have a major and a minor. Nobody cares. Nobody is going to hire you. They're not going to say, well, Juliet had two majors, but Braeden was only had a major and a minor. Like, that's not important. So pursue the things that really interest you, and don't let other people freak you out. Like, your experience and your path is yours. And recognize that there's not a really direct path for most careers. Like, if you want to be an economist, then I definitely think you should major in economics. If you want to be an accountant, definitely accounting. You want to major in accounting, right? There's some benefits to getting some of the credentialing stuff done as an undergraduate. But most of the companies that come and recruit at the University of Richmond or any place, they don't care about your major. They care that you can write, that you can communicate effectively when you're speaking, that you can solve problems and you have critical thinking skills, and all of those sorts of competencies that you develop as a liberal education student. So don't get stuck in, I have to do this if I want to do consulting, or I have to do this if I want to do this. Coming to the University of Richmond and having a liberal arts education is going to equip you. And we just like to think and believe that Jepson's just going to give you even a little bit more edge, because it is unique and it's applicable everywhere.
That's actually a great segue into a question we just had asked about majors. And I think you answered it a little bit. So if you just want to gloss over a few more points here, a attendee asked, for students who double major in leadership studies and another major, what are the common other majors that people might choose? And I think, like you just said, maybe there isn't a common other major. And then from there, how do students often connect this and the skills they gain to post-grad jobs? And again, I think you just covered some of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the combo question changes, sometimes over time. We definitely some of them are probably really obvious, right? So we have business and leadership studies. We have psychology and leadership studies, political science and leadership studies. But we also, like Juliet, we have lots of students who are doing journalism and leadership studies. We have people who are majoring in the arts and pairing that with leadership studies. So again, I think, in fact, we are actually now contributing some classes for a brand new approved arts management minor. So I think no matter what you're interested in terms of what kind of career you want, um, leadership studies is going to be applicable to any other major on campus that you choose, or minor for that matter. I don't know if the three of you have anything else you want to add about that, but
So I'm one of our poli-sci leadership crossovers, one of the common ones. And I think as far as like the interconnectedness, first of all, like there is a lot of overlaps with some of the readings, especially with some of the early political philosophy, like tons of Aristotle, tons of Machiavelli and stuff like that. But I think just going back to what I was saying in my first big spiel, with how Jepson kind of changes the way you attack your own passions is like I was taking one of my poli-sci electives and it was with a professor I hadn't taken yet. And after like two classes, maybe just like with how I was talking in the discussions, they were like, "You're a Jepson kid, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." So like it's just like it works really well. And like I said, it's going to give you kind of an upper leg in some of those other major classes just because it's the way you approach the discussions and all of the um group like seminar things because all of the Jepson classes are so discussion based. So like when we start doing like our random class discussions at the end of the lectures for your other major classes, like you're going to be so like head and shoulders above the other students. They're just going to be like, oh, like this kid's a pro and they're going to know.
This is such awesome information from all of you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're getting to the end of our time here, so I'm just going to go ahead and share some resources for our attendees. So here on my screen, you'll see some QR codes to different resources for upcoming this fall. So we have our New Spider orientation website where you can find the orientation schedule for this August. You'll also find a link to our YouTube channel. We record all of our webinars. So if you want to listen back to some of this awesome information, you can view it there and see some of our other webinar content. And then I also have a QR code here to the rest of our New Spider Summer series if you want to sign up for those. And then finally, you can follow us on Instagram to stay up to date with different deadlines. We'll be posting reminders on there for everything for New Spider orientation. But again, thank you all so much for joining us today. Is there any last things any of you would like to share to our students incoming this fall?
I'll share two things. If you go to the Jepson website and you go under the student resources portion of our website, you will find that we have syllabi up that you can take a look at. And the best thing to do when you go in, it's going to be in there initially by semester, but there's a button to click that says sort by class. So if you wanted to go look and see what a Leadership 101 looks like with Peter Kaufman, whose area is religious studies, versus what does a 101 look like with Julian Hayter, who's a historian, same kind of thing with 102, you'll be able to look at the different syllabi and kind of see what each of the faculty, based on their kind of background, brings that's kind of interesting and unique to the curriculum. And you can look at electives and all of the other classes there as well. And the other thing too, I would say, is if you go under our alumni section on our webpage, we have class videos that we've been filming since 2014. So y'all could even go see the class of 2026, which features our three fabulous guests today. But we do it every year, and students are talking about the research that they did, the internships that they did, favorite things that they took away from the experience. So if you want to go just hear other folks talk about their experience, those are available to you under the alumni section, as are some different alumni videos too. So, and it looks like they may have just put those links up for you as well. So I just also want to thank Braeden, Juliet, and Jack for coming back and talking with us. They thought they were done with me when they graduated, but little did they know. So
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much again for joining us today, and thank you for sharing these resources. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. Bye.